Hello everybody and welcome to a new experiment on the channel. Now, they say in football, never go back, but I don't care. Mauricio Pochettino is back in charge of Tottenham Hotspur. Let's see how he gets on. So here he is then, the man, the myth, the legend, leaving the club in November 2019. Obviously, it may well be that he comes back. He may well have come back already. We don't know what's going on. No one knows what's going on at Tottenham at the moment. So I've brought him back. I've brought back his coaching staff as well. Let's see how Tottenham get on through this season. We'll start by getting to when the World Cup is on. So here are the results they've had so far this season. A good August with 4 wins from 5 from that. Losing to Porto in the Champions League didn't help though, but they did beat Malmo. Then they lost to Inter, then they beat Inter, and then they beat Malmo and Porto. We'll take a look at the Champions League group shortly. Currently on a 7-match unbeaten run. Forget the beginning of October. Doesn't matter. It was losing to City, losing to Liverpool, losing to Chelsea, but beating Arsenal. We didn't do that in real life, did we? Let's take a look quickly at the Champions League group, where they were unlucky to be eliminated. I'm not entirely sure how they were eliminated, but I'm guessing it was head-to-head. They lost to Porto 3-1, but only beat them 3-2. So that 84th minute goal on the final match, they saw Tottenham drop into the Europa League. So not great for the Champions League, but let's take a look at the league table, where after 16 games, you would say it's probably about level compared to where they were in real life after 16 Premier League games. Manchester City are far and away leading the table. We're not concentrating on them, of course. But yeah, 32 points, 4 points clear of Newcastle at this point, and above Arsenal, which is always well and good. Let's go to the end of the transfer window, February to be precise, and see where we are. So 2 players were bought in January. Chumi was one of them. £2.8 million, central defender from Almeria. And then a Football Manager favourite, Alexis Salameska, was bought in from Milan for £13.5 million. Results-wise, since the World Cup, they kind of picked up where they left off. Beating Millwall, beating West Ham, that's always important. Losing to Crystal Palace on New Year's Day, though, a bit of a hangover probably for everybody. Losing in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. We've not reached the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup for a few seasons now, but nicely comfortable against Nantes in the Europa League. 3-0 up from the first leg. Let's have a look at the table, where, much like in real life, they currently lie in 4th place. 46 points so far, 3 points ahead of Arsenal, 10 behind Chelsea. So leading the battle for that 4th place. They can pip Arsenal to it. That will be an achievement. So let's skip to the end of the season, see if we won anything, and see where they ended up. So, an awful run at the end of the season, culminating in being knocked out in the Europa League semi-finals by Bayern Munich, losing to Brentford on the last day of the season. April was okay, beating Manchester United on penalties in the quarter-finals of the Europa League. Another win, this time away at Arsenal. That really doesn't happen very often. Beating West Ham as well. It probably means one thing: they probably missed out on Champions League football. Let's just confirm it. And they lost out to Champions League football by Arsenal. 67 points in the end. So it's Europa League football for Tottenham next season. Might well be a reality in real life, if we're brutally honest. But the biggest question, please God, did Mauricio survive the season? He did. He is still in charge of the football club going in to the 23-24 season. So let's get to the end of the transfer window and see what rebuilding, which is the key thing for Tottenham at this point, was done. So one player that was brought in the summer was Nick Bazier. He joined the club from Ostend for £2.5 million. Dejan Kulusevski's deal was confirmed, as was Pedro Porro's, and the one player that did come in was Pedro. He joined the club from Flamengo. And so far, so good in the Premier League, losing on the opening day to Manchester United, losing to Fulham as well, but beating Bournemouth, Burnley, and Arsenal early season, and Liverpool as well. That's not something that happens often these days. Beating Apoel Nicosia, played them in the Europa League many moons ago. Hibernia in their group, as are Athletic Bilbao. And they're currently sitting 4th in the Premier League table after 7 league games. So here we are at the end of December. It's been a good run for Spurs through October, November and December itself. Losing to Chelsea though, being knocked out in the 4th round by Liverpool of the Carabao Cup, doing nicely in the Europa League. We'll take a look at that group shortly. And they were doing all right in December until drawing with Manchester City and losing away at Wolves on Boxing Day. So there's something to work on going into the new year. Let's take a look at that Europa League group, where it was 6 wins out of 6. You would expect that, though, from Tottenham. They should dominate the Europa League. They are a bigger fish in that one than they are in the Champions League. League table-wise, 36 points. Level on points with Liverpool. 4 points behind Manchester City in 4th place at half distance. So what we're going to do again, we'll go to the end of February, see what players were bought in January, if any, to improve the squad and see where Tottenham are. So no players were bought in January to help the cause, which means Maurizio was probably happy with what he had. I mean, he's had that before when he's been happy with what he's got. Let's take a look at what's been happening, though, in the fixtures, where the poor run continued into the new year, drawing with Liverpool and losing to Chelsea. I mean, the point at Anfield isn't bad, not something we get very often, but they're through to the next round of the FA Cup only just by beating Newport. We've been there as well in the past, beating Stoke in the 4th round. That's more like it. So they're currently sitting 6th, 48 points, 5 points away from 4th place. Venice, if they can pick up the Europa League trophy, they'll qualify for the Champions League next season anyway. So, let's get to the end of the season and see where we are. So here is how the second half of the season went. And it's not great, to be brutally honest. Losing to Arsenal in the 5th round of the FA Cup, being knocked out by Borussia Dortmund in the Europa League round of 16. And a poor run at the end of the Premier League season means that they didn't qualify for the Champions League. I think it's going to be Conference League football next season. And indeed it is. 62 points from the season. Okay, so again, things haven't got better. They're not as good as what they were under Antonio Conte, which surprises me a little bit. Did Maurizio manage to keep hold of his job in the meantime? He's still with the football club. 111 games in his return, 60 wins, 34 defeats, a win percentage of 54%. Harry Kane's still here, as is Heung-min Son. We're going to have to make some changes, though, if we're going to get back into the top 4, which is where everyone wants to be, frankly. Let's see what happens next season. One thing to mention before we continue: somebody must have won the Champions League, because Tottenham were upgraded to the Europa League. Thank goodness for that. Let's get on to the transfers, where 5 players have come in total. Gregor Kobel is one of them, goalkeeper, 26, coming in from Dortmund. Lucas Torreira has joined the football club from Galatasaray. Former Arsenal player, of course. You are cleansed when you walk through the gates at White Hart Lane if you play for Arsenal. Tim Oberman has come in, young central defender from Bochum. Nice to see Spurs buying some younger talent. Amir Vichandi has joined the football club as well, 19-year-old player from Athletic Club. And Roberto Fernandez, another young player as well, he has joined from Malaga. Start to the season was okay, lost on the opening day again though, lost to Manchester United as well, but beat Fulham, Newcastle and Burnley. Got through to the 4th round of the Carabao Cup by beating Gillingham. Obviously, we're now in the new Europa League phase, where we play half a dozen million teams to see who gets through to the next round. Rangers is one of the sides we come up against, incidentally. So after 7 league games, 6th place is a place where Tottenham find themselves in the table. 12 points, 2 points away from Manchester City. Aston Villa had a good start to the season early doors. We are above Arsenal at this point will that continue? Let's find out at Christmas. So here we are at Christmas. It's been a bit of a mixed bag. Losing to Liverpool again in the Carabao Cup, having a couple of good results in the Europa League. So we should make it through to the knockout stage of that. We'll take a look at the table in a second. Well, we've got a couple of games to play after Christmas in that. Arsenal coming up in the next fixture. Let's take a look at that Europa League table. Right? So currently sitting 6th, and we have qualified for the playoff round. So at the moment we're through to the last 16. We might end up in the round of 32. I don't know why they've messed with this thing. Anyway, let's have a look at the league table. That's a little easier to understand. And we're currently outside the European places on 30 points. Everton have got 2 games in hand on us as well. So it's not going brilliantly for Pochettino. Has to be said. You know, they say never go back. And it started off well, but we are back in the cycle of it's gone a bit drab again, hasn't it? Let's see where we are at the end of February with a couple of new additions, hopefully, to help catapult us back, at least into European contention. So just the one player bought in on loan from Liverpool, Gabriel Barbosa, is part of the football club. So things have been going okay following Christmas. They lost to Arsenal after Christmas, beat Crystal Palace, lost to Manchester City at the Etihad, I think 2-1, has to be said. And then we are through to the last 16. So we did qualify in the top 8 of the Europa League. Villarreal await there. I can see that the league table has improved by the number underneath the name. Let's have a look at the table. Well, we are back in European contention. 49 points. So I don't think we're going to make the Champions League. So it looks likely that it's going to be Europa League football next season. Let's go to the end of the year. So here we are at the end of the 24-25 season. We lost to Napoli in the Europa League, and we had a poor run at the end of the season again. But we won a couple of games at least this time before the end of the season. Aston Villa beat us in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Shouldn't be losing at home to Aston Villa in the FA Cup, with all due respect to them. Let's have a look at the league table, where it is indeed Europa League football again, only just, mind you, 2 points ahead of Newcastle in the finish. Miles off those Champions League places. 15 points. So it's not going well. Second time round for Pochettino. We're doing what we should be doing, but we need to be progressing. Let's see what happens in the summer of 2025. And quite a few players were bought in the summer. Luke Oslerson has joined us from Willem II. Nikalu has joined us from Spania, Robert Sanchez from Brighton, Correa from Valencia, Daniels from Duel, Jasara from Lorraine, and Molina from Atletico Madrid. In fact, with interest, let's have a look at the Tottenham squad. Because there isn't too much difference to it. Quite a lot of the players that are here now are still with the football club. Harry Kane, thank God he's still here, banging in the goals for us. Heung-min Son is still here. Kulusevski, Højbjerg, Skip, Romero, Dyer. How is Eric Dyer still here? Brian Gill. Oh my goodness me. Richarlison's still here. Pedro Porro, Yus Bissouma. So yeah, a few players have gone, but quite a few are still here. And it's not been a great start to the season. No wins so far this season in the Premier League. Nice win over Real Sociedad, though, to kind of boost the confidence a little bit. And through to the 4th round of the League Cup. But obviously that run without a win sees them 5th from bottom without a win. 7 games gone. That's happened before. Although we've been lower down when that happened before. So, it's crunch time. Need to get up that table quickly. And, I mean, really quickly. Let's get to Christmas and see if things improve. Now, in fairness, things have improved. Daniel Levy did not pull the trigger, which is unlike Daniel Levy, but never mind. So we've done well in the Europa League group phase. We'll take a look at the table in a second with that. Premier League had a good October, not so good November, not so good December, but not so many losses in that time. Few draws coupled in with that. Let's take a look at that Europa League table. That'll cheer me up, right? It will, because we are top of the Europa League table. We are looking comfortable to make it through to the last 16 of the Europa League. And the Premier League table looks a little bit nicer as well now. 5 wins on the board, 23 points, although we are closer to the bottom 3 than we are to the top 7. So here we are at the end of January. You're probably wondering why I came back at the end of January. Because Daniel Levy decided to pull the plug on Maurizio Pochettino on the 29th of December. Merry Christmas, Maurizio. Left Tottenham 13th in the table at the time, lasting 2.5 years into his second spell in charge. So, it didn't really work, did it? Going back. And I know it's one thing that people are looking at and going, well, should you go back? Yes, you should, Maurizio. You should definitely come back. And I'll tell you why, as a Spurs fan that goes to games, I want to get off my seat. I want to enjoy it. Life under Maurizio Pochettino was fun. We enjoyed ourselves. We had a good time while we were doing it. So, will he come back in real life? He may well have done already. But this experiment shows that whilst he has come back, and he did come back, and we did well to start with, things might not work out exactly how we're hoping. Hopefully you've enjoyed this experiment today. If you have, please leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.